Hey everyone, welcome. Today, we are tackling a really fascinating piece of modern history, how the idea of India as one single nation was even born. It wasn't an accident, well, not entirely. It's a story of unexpected consequences, powerful new ideas, and the very first sparks of a revolution. So let's just jump right in with the big question. Before the late 1800s, if you asked someone where they were from, they wouldn't have said India. They'd tell you they were from Awadh or Bengal or Hyderabad, or that they were Maratha. So, how on earth did this huge collection of different identities, languages, and kingdoms start to think of themselves as one thing, one people, one India? To really get that transformation, we first have to nail down a super important concept. You see, there's a huge difference between a state and a nation. And that difference, it's right at the heart of our story. Okay, and this distinction is absolutely key. A state is the machinery of government, right? It's the borders, the laws, the political structure. It's a fact on a map. But a nation, that's a feeling. It's a psychological bond. It's that deep down sense that we belong together. The incredible story of modern India is how a bunch of territories under a single state started to actually feel like a true nation. And this is where the story gets a little ironic. The very empire that was dominating India, the British, ended up accidentally giving them the tools they needed to build a unified front against them. I promise you they did not mean to do it, but they literally laid the groundwork for Indian nationalism. Just think about it for a second. For the very first time, the entire subcontinent was under one political roof. Suddenly, someone in Bengal and someone in Punjab were living under the exact same laws, dealing with the same administration, and facing the same economic exploitation. And that shared experience, it created this incredibly powerful, unifying thought. Hey, we all have the same enemy. And get this, the British built this massive railway network. Now, they did it for their own profit, of course, to ship raw materials and move troops around. But those same steel tracks started carrying something else entirely: nationalist leaders and revolutionary ideas. A leader from Bengal can now hop on a train to Bombay, meet up with other thinkers, and suddenly realize their problems weren't just local, they were national. And nothing hammered home the need for self-rule more clearly than the reigns of two totally different viceroys, Lord Lytton and Lord Ripon. One was this harsh, oppressive guy, and the other was a well-meaning liberal. But in their own unique ways, both of them managed to convince Indians that the whole system was just broken beyond repair. Lytton's policies were, wow, they were like a masterclass in how to make people angry. I mean, while millions were starving in a famine, he held this ridiculously lavish imperial party. Then he passed laws to shut down Indian language newspapers and took away the right for Indians to own firearms, a right Europeans got to keep. His actions basically put the racist, exploitative nature of the British Raj on full display for everyone to see. So then comes the liberal, Lord Ripon. He tries to pass this bill, the Ilbert Bill, that would suddenly allow Indian judges to preside over cases involving Europeans, just basic equality. But the racist backlash from the European community was so fierce that the bill was totally defeated. And that was a crushing lesson. If even the most well-intentioned reforms were impossible, well, then the only answer left was to take control of their own destiny. But hold on, this wasn't all just happening from the outside in. While the British were busy creating a common enemy, something huge was happening inside Indian society itself. A whole new intellectual class was being born, and they were armed with new ideas and a brand new sense of purpose. It kind of happened in stages. First, modern education, which the British themselves introduced, exposed young Indians to Western ideas like liberty, democracy, and nationalism. This created a new, educated middle class, lawyers, doctors, teachers, who could critique British rule using Britain's own logic against them. And ironically, English became the common language that let a lawyer from Madras argue with a teacher from Bengal. So how did these new ideas catch fire? The press. And this number is just incredible. By 1877, there were 170 newspapers publishing in local Indian languages. 170. Think about that. These papers became the engines of the nationalist movement, carrying ideas about self-rule and critiques of colonial policy into every town and village. And at the very same time, scholars started digging into India's own incredible history. They were rediscovering a past filled with amazing achievements in science, art, and philosophy. This wasn't just some boring academic exercise. It was a psychological weapon. It flew right in the face of the colonial myth that Indians were some inferior race who needed British help, and it filled a new generation with this amazing sense of pride and confidence. Okay, so you've got this new confidence, you've got this shared list of grievances. What's the next logical step? You get organized. And that brings us to the final piece of our story today, the very first political groups that became the training grounds for a national movement. Now, this didn't happen overnight. It was a slow burn, a steady evolution over decades. The first organizations were pretty small and really just focused on local stuff. But bit by bit, their vision got bigger, more ambitious, and, well, more national. And you can really see this evolution. The earliest groups like the Landholder Society, they were basically just a lobby group for rich landowners. But fast forward to the 1870s, and you see this massive shift. Groups like the Indian Association weren't just asking for favors for one class. They were demanding a political program for all of India. The focus went from what's in it for us to what's in it for all of us. This all led to a really pivotal moment with the Indian Association. It was founded by leaders like Surendranath Banerjee, and it was the first group to really think and act on an all-India scale. It laid the foundation, both in ideas and organization, for what was coming next. That's why we see it as the true forerunner of the Indian National Congress. So when you put it all together, it was really a perfect storm. I love this quote that captures it so well. The same railways built to transport cotton and troops began to transport ideas and unity. The very machinery of British control ended up creating a unified stage, and a new, educated Indian class, armed with modern ideas and ancient pride, rose up to challenge them on that very stage. And that leaves us with one last big question. All the pieces were finally on the board: a common identity, shared problems, and years of political practice. But what would it finally take to bring all these scattered voices together, to unite them into one powerful chorus that could truly speak for an entire nation? Well, that's a story for another time. Thanks for joining me.